Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, go take a look at our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll always know when we're posting new content. Today's video is a bit of a revamp video. We've been going back through our channel and we've been selecting older projects and redoing them, only now featuring Krakovski crystal elements. And we're super excited about this one. This was a really popular video called the Dainty Solitaire Pendant. And not only are we redoing it with the beautiful Krakovski Crystal Chaton here, but I've also figured out a way to make this project even easier, if you can believe that. All you're going to need is 7 2mm beads here. These are glass round druck beads. They're in a beautiful sort of opalescent blue color. I have one 8mm Krakovski Crystal Chaton, and the color that this is in is light sapphire AB glitter. And then I have some Delicas. These are just standard size 11 Miyuki Delicas. Beyond that, you're going to need some Fireline. I like crystal when I'm going to be working with lighter colors like this, but you can match it to whatever project you're doing, whether you're going to use crystal, smoke, or another type of beading thread. And of course, you're going to need scissors and a size 12 needle. Now, everything I have here is enough to make one pendant. This is also a really great technique for earrings, so if that's the case, you're going to want to double everything that I have here. Okay, so on about 2 to 2.5 feet of Fireline, I have strung up one of my 2mm drucks and then one Delica. I then repeated that 6 more times. This ensures that what I have here uses all 7 of my drucks, but I begin with a druck and I end with a Delica. This is because we're going to want to create an endless loop with these beads. Okay, to tie this into a loop, we're just going to use a square knot. So that's right over left, then left over right. It's like a double knot, but your second knot is backwards. And I like to do both of my knots away from the project and then bring it all down together. That works because this is Fireline. If you're using a different type of beading thread, you may have to do your first knot, bring it down to the beadwork, and then do your second knot and bring it down to the beadwork. So now, to secure this even further, we're going to pass through all the beads in this ring again, once I can get my tail out of the way. This is going to help to add a little bit of stability and strength to the beaded ring that we just did. And you're going to keep going past the point where you started, and you'll see that point because you'll see that's where the tail is. We want to go past that point, just so we know we've gone around maybe 1 1/4 times. And as far as this tail, keep it as long as you need, so it's long enough that it's at a comfortable length for you to weave in later. Some people need more than others, so judge that for yourself. So this is what we got, and you're going to end coming out of a Delica. Now we're going to do a bit of square stitch, and we're going to add these little arms going all around our setting. So I picked up a new Delica here, and I'm going to circle back through the Delica that I'm coming out of. So the side of the bead that my thread is coming out of, that's also where my needle is coming out of. So it's important that you're circling back around and not heading back into it. You want to encourage that bead to sit right on top of the one we just circled through. And then you're going to go through that new bead that you just added. And we're going to do that one more time. You're going to pick up a new Delica, circle back into that same Delica that you're coming out of, and tack on another one. Only now we're not going to head up into that new Delica. We're going to go back down into the Delica in our ring and then through 2 more beads in our ring. So the druck and the next Delica bead, because we're going to do that all over again. So I'm going to show you that one more time before I, off camera, finish the rest of our arms. So again, we're going to pick up our new Delica, circle back through. So you're just looping back around the Delica that you're coming out of. Sometimes you do have to pop it into place a little bit with your finger. And I like to pinch it between my fingertips. That's what helps keep it nice and tight after I've pulled through. And then we're going to do that one more time. And again, I'm going to pinch it between my fingertips so it's less likely that things loosen up. Luckily, if things do loosen up a little bit, once you pull through the next couple of beads in your ring, you can give it a little tug and it will tighten up nicely. So go back into the Delica that's in the ring and then through the next druck and the next Delica. And this is that great little point where if you did have it a little bit loose, it'll tighten right up for you. So we're going to continue on around the ring, making more of these little arms coming off of each Delica. So I'm going to do that off camera and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I'm just finishing up my last arm. So I'm going to head down through the Delica in my ring, through the next struck and the next Delica, and then I'm going to head right back up this very first arm that we made. So that way I'm coming out of the very tip of it. You can usually get through all of those beads in one pass. And then we head up the next bead and then pass through the last bead. Here's where the setting starts to get really exciting because we actually get to place the chaton into our setting and get it secured in there. So the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to go through the tip of all of these arms, but I'm going to add one Delica in between. And that's going to allow us to close this setting onto the back of the chaton. And that's just really the most exciting part. So as you can see, this goes nice and fast, which is one of the reasons why I love this setting so much. So this is a really great little project if you want to make gifts for people, if you sell jewelry and you want things that are really beautiful but low labor. If you do vendor shows or craft fairs, this is a great little design because again, there's not a lot of labor into it. Don't get your tail caught in there. They work up nice and fast and they are really beautiful also in earrings as well. So I have my last Delica here. I'm going to head right through that very first arm. Now I find this part easiest just to sit it down onto my mat here. And by the way, you can weave this tail in at any point now. It's nice and secure. So I'm going to sit my little chaton in there, point side up. So the pretty part of the stone is facing my beading surface here. And I'm going to use my finger just to hold it down and I'm going to pull this tight. And it closes right along the back of the stone. Those of you who are familiar with the original Dainty Solitaire Pendant will know that this is definitely a little bit of an easier way to do this. And the reason that this is working up differently is because the original Dainty Solitaire used 8 2mm beads, and here I'm using 7. And the reason that I'm using 7 is because I really love showcasing beautiful and cost-effective beads, and those are these 2mm glass struck beads for sure, but they are ever so slightly elongated rather than a perfect true round when they get to the size. So they did create too big of a circle when I used the 8. But this is even better. It uses less beads. It's nice and secure. You're still, as you can see, exposing tons of that beautiful crystal chaton. And the back becomes a lot easier as well. So now that we have this tightened, it needs to stay tight. And as you can see, that isn't necessarily going to happen just like this. So we're going to go through that circle and we're going to tighten it up and reinforce it. What I like to do is just keep my fingers kind of on the top and the bottom and then just head through all of those Delicas in that ring. You're going to want to go around a couple of times. That way it keeps it nice and tight because when you don't, it could loosen up a little bit and expose some of the thread in between the beads, and we don't want that to happen. And what's nice is this part still goes nice and fast, and you will be able to whip these out in no time. Okay, so this is the back of our pendant, nice and tightened up. This is another beautiful look at the front. And where I've stopped is where the tip of an arm was, because now I'm going to work my way to the ring in the Delica in the ring rather. So I'm just going to go up that arm, just like we did before, following that thread path that's already there. And I want to go through that little Delica right at the tip. This may be a little bit tricky because the ring is hopefully nice and tight, but as you can see, it's totally doable. And now we're going to start a really cute, simple little bail. Now, if you were doing these as earrings, you might want to do a different type of loop, but we're going to do a little bit more of a substantial loop because it's going to be a bail for, say, a chain to go through. And to do this, we're just going to be continuing on with some square stitch. So I'm going to pick up my new Delica. I'm going to circle back through the Delica I'm coming out of. That would be the toughest part of this whole thing, is just in case that's a little bit tight. If you can get through that part, you're good to go. I'm going to go through the new Delica. I'm going to pick up another one. Now, however many Delicas we add into this chain, so now I'm going to go through the new one I just added. Oops. However many Delicas you add to this chain really should be determined by what you think you're going to have this hanging off of. if you are going to put it on a nice dainty silver chain, we don't need a ton of Delicas here to make this little piece really long, because the longer this piece is, the bigger your loop's going to be. We don't need, oops, we don't need a loop that's enormous. Don't do what I just did and try to add a bead before you were at the tip. But what is nice is that this beaded loop has a nice intricate look to it, but it's still very simple. So even if you go a little bit bigger than you intended, it's really not that big of a deal visually. You can see that. And you can start to test how big it's going to be by folding it back down and making it meet the Delica in the arm right behind the one we started at. So that's still a little bit small for me. You're also going to want to make sure that whatever you're going to have this hanging off of, say it's a chain, take into account the clasp on that chain. Is the clasp on your chain going to fit through the loop that you make? Or will you have to create this loop around the chain instead? So that's something that you're going to want to take into account. Okay, let's check it again. And again, if we look right here, we have the Delica in the ring at the back. We have this middle one here, and we have the one where our little bail is started. It's this middle one that we're dealing with now. So let's take a look. I think I want to go one more on this. Just like that. Okay, so now, if you've decided that this is where you'd like to end it, you're going to go through that Delica. Now, keep in mind, the thread is on this side of our project. So that's the side of the hole that we're going to go into. Just like this. And encourage it to loop down. Just like that. And then we're going to secure it into place by looping through this end bead again. We get a little loop of fire line. That's not very tight looking right now, but it will be. So that's how it gets secured down. And you give it a nice little tug and it pulls it right down. Now we're going to go through that little loop again, that little thread path, because we want to tighten this up and reinforce it. And we have this great little bail, which looks so simple and dainty and pretty. This looks so nice off of a simple little silver chain. Or if you were doing a gold chain, you could use gold Delicas. You don't have to use a metallic Delica at all. You could use any sort of a colored Delica if you want a little bit more contrast to what you're going to be hanging this off of. But to me, one of the reasons I like this project so much is that because using a gold or a silver or a pewter or some sort of metallic Delica, you really get the sense that this is more a fine piece of jewelry versus something that looks very beaded. From far away, it's going to look like a beautiful sort of solitaire pendant, and you can have so much fun with the combination of the chatons that you use or the 2mm beads here that you use. If you do decide to use a 2mm bead here, that is perhaps a perfect round sphere versus these, which are ever so slightly elongated, you may find that you have to bump this up to 8 beads. But right now, I think the 7 really works beautifully. And even then, I think the 7 would work fine in a more rounded 2mm bead as well. But either way, you can see that you really expose so much of the chaton, which is what I love. I find chaton settings can be a little tricky because to have them be secure, you're often covering up so much of the front of the stone. And in this case, you are not. So I'm just going to go ahead and weave off my thread and show you my finished piece without all this stuff hanging off of it. Okay, here is my finished Dainty Solitaire Pendant with that beautiful little bail. Oops, that beautiful little bail. And I had done this one earlier, so this can give you an idea of kind of what they might look like together as a pair for earrings. Really beautiful, simple design, and so fast and so easy to make up. All right, I hope you loved this project. Make sure to visit us on over at EurekaCrystalBeads.com for everything I use to create this project in a multitude of colors that you have to choose from. Till next time, bye.